Even Floyd, like when you make yourself like we got issues over anger, he's still the best fighter out there. Until somebody beat him, that's who he is.
Do you think he should step back in the ring?
I think he got to right now because the money gone.
So the money's really gone?
Yeah. That's what you think. It's fight, get the money, spend the money, fight.
All that money?
Yeah, it took been 2 years.
So is it just his overhead is so high on a day-to-day, month-to-month? Like
I don't even want to talk about it. Like with the lifestyle, that money's gone, trust me. Now it's like, you call him, he'll be at your local hosting in a nightclub because you need that action right now.
Wow.
Are Floyd's comments potentially in breach of contract? He could blow the whole fight up and never fight and also have taken a cash advance on the fight he may not ever have. He's broke! I'm sorry. It's just the truth. Floyd is so badly hurting for money that this is the stuff he's doing. Knowingly signing contracts for a pro fight just to go and publicly undermine it while taking a cash advance. Essentially going, cool, I need that money now. Who cares about the fight?
Floyd Mayweather is reportedly dealing with major financial strain after authorities flagged unpaid tax obligations. According to recent reports, the IRS has issued a lien against his holdings due to outstanding taxes amounting to approximately $7.3 million, linked to the years 2018 and 2023.
Mayweather is being targeted by the IRS over unpaid taxes, with some of his properties and assets being held on lien until the full balance is paid off, and if not, said assets will be fully taken away. This report comes from Business Insider, but is also now being reported by Ring Magazine, in which they reveal that the IRS has filed a lien versus Mayweather in Las Vegas, currently putting a hold on Mayweather's Vegas property due to unpaid taxes stemming from 2018 and 2023 that have now ballooned to $7.3 million.
This situation goes far beyond a minor concern. Federal authorities have formally intervened, placing restrictions on property in Las Vegas until the outstanding balance is paid. If the obligation remains unsettled, those holdings may ultimately be seized.
You think he's talking this trash because he wants a rematch? You think he actually wants
Absolutely.
You think he wants a rematch?
Look, another reason why he's crawled out of his rock, he needs money.
You think he needs money?
Absolutely.
He's always flossy.
It's absolutely, he needs money.
You think he's going
Once
broke?
again, come on. Fighters like that always go broke.
He's always spending, so I guess.
Absolutely. Look, he's not fighting anymore, so that big money's not coming in. Look at what happened to Mike Tyson. He made what, $500 million?
Right.
You think you can't spend $500 million overnight? Absolutely.
Yeah.
What adds to the concern is when this is happening. It comes at a time when Floyd Mayweather is already facing scrutiny over his business activities, along with growing attention around his anticipated bout with Manny Pacquiao.
He's like, Mayweather's broke. I said, no. He's like, no, really. Mayweather's broke. Now, I don't know if it's true.
Right.
This is what this guy told me. I'm like, how could he be broke? He's like, yo, he spends like crazy.
Yeah.
Spends like
I
crazy.
mean, it only could go but so long. I mean, and you're not fighting.
Yeah.
Because I don't see Mayweather even doing any goofy like that.
But you would think that your investments would continue to grow.
Right.
As long as you keep your spending under wraps.
At the same time, Floyd Mayweather described the rematch as nothing more than an exhibition. However, reports indicate he may have actually agreed to a professional contest, which could create legal complications if the terms of that agreement aren't fulfilled. Adding to the concern, there are also allegations that the same fight deal was used as security for a loan, raising further doubts about what's happening financially behind the scenes.
Is that what's his feeling? But he signed a real fight.
So it's for sure.
Yes, the contract that we signed is a real fight.
Real fight. Okay. Yeah, because I know he said
I want to fight an exhibition.
no exhibition. It's either real fight or nothing.
Yeah, it's a real fight. Yeah.
Is Fear still in Las Vegas?
That's the contract that he signed. I mean,
Yeah. Okay, so it's still happening then.
he has to remember that.
But it's still on. It's still happening.
Oh yeah, we did sign the contract already, so there's no reason why.
Why wouldn't?
Why wouldn't?
Yeah. All right.
Adding to the situation, several gyms tied to Floyd Mayweather have reportedly closed, with claims pointing to unpaid wages and unresolved rent obligations. In a surprising turn, Manny Pacquiao is said to have stepped in to take over one of the sites and relaunch it under a new identity. Reports also suggest staff members walked out after not receiving their pay, raising further concerns about how the operations were being handled behind the scenes. With several groups now involved, including tax authorities, business associates, and financial backers, there are increasing demands for clarity from all sides. For Floyd Mayweather, whose public persona has long been centered on wealth and financial mastery, these developments put that carefully built image under serious pressure.
I done boxed everybody. I boxed everybody. And it's so crazy. Like, you know, I had a lot of great days. I had a lot of bad days in the gym. But I tell them I never have bad paydays.
Dimitri Salita told me a story that one time a big heavyweight, a known heavyweight, challenged you. You told Leonard to go get your bag and you dropped him with the body shot.
In a boxing gym, it don't count. You can have good days, you can have bad days. You know, a lot of times guys do good in the gym. You know, they be happy. They feel like if you done a good with Floyd Mayweather in the gym, oh, I want a world title, Well, you got to really look at this now. Slow down. You go home to an apartment. You know, I go home to a palace. There's a difference.
Now, Floyd,
you know, when you say your name, when they say these fighters' name, they say thousands and millions. When you say Money Mayweather, you say billions.
The lack of any public response from Floyd Mayweather and his legal representatives is only deepening the uncertainty. With so many factors in play, the situation appears increasingly complex and far from straightforward. Whether this is settled discreetly or escalates into a larger legal and financial dispute, it's evident that this stands as one of the most significant challenges he has encountered beyond the ring.
He owed that money to the IRS. How much does he owe?
It's in the $20+ million range.
It's a lot of money, man.
But it's not something that he's been, it's not like deception.
No.
It's just neglect to pay.
Neglect. And it's also like, I think, and there is like a truth to this, he makes so much money that there's probably a point when they're like, hey, it's time to pay your taxes. And you go like, all right, here's a check for $25 million. That's an incredible amount of money. And then they go, that's true, but you owe 50 more. And he's just like, that can't be right. I've given you $25 million.
Yeah, he's bought over 100 luxury cars from the same dealer and always pays in cash.
He has $15 million worth of cars.
Congrats.
You can sell. Just as things begin to look like a complicated situation full of legal and financial pressure, Timothy Bradley steps in with a different perspective. Instead of reacting with concern, he suggests the situation could actually be unfolding according to Floyd Mayweather's plan. He's not dismissing the concerns entirely, but rather analyzing it through a fighter's lens, pointing to the idea of upfront payments as a form of leverage when handled correctly. His view implies that if funds were secured in advance and structured strategically, then shifting from a sanctioned bout to an exhibition may not signal disorder, but rather a calculated move.
I don't know if Mayweather did that, but you can. You can put a non-refundable attachment on this and be like, all right, hey, I need an advancement for training. I need $3-4 million or whatever for training expenses. And if they agree to say yeah, and he put in a contract that is non-refundable, it's free money.
Looking at it that way, it almost aligns perfectly with how Floyd Mayweather typically operates. What seems like disorder to outsiders could actually be a controlled approach behind the scenes. Timothy Bradley is essentially suggesting that obligations may already be handled, pressure could be easing, and adjustments are being made to reflect where Floyd is at now in his career, a seasoned fighter who isn't stepping into a serious bout unless everything lines up in his favor. But this is where things become complicated. Bradley himself points out that if a deal was originally signed for a professional fight, then that agreement carries real weight. Changing those terms midway isn't something that happens without consequences, and it could open the door to legal issues.
It's basically free money. So we know, Mayweather was, it's been reported, I should say, allegedly, that, he's been, a little upside down on some of his taxes and some of his properties. And he needed to come back and fight and take care of that. Well, he got some cheese from that advancement.
This is where the situation becomes more layered for Floyd Mayweather, because there's a clear clash between perception and structure. On one side, he may be operating with a businessman's mindset, prioritizing timing, financial positioning, and how deals are structured behind the scenes. On the other side, The expectations from regulators, contracts, and the broader boxing world still treat the situation through the lens of a traditional fighter agreement. Timothy Bradley adds another angle by suggesting that upfront payments and financial structuring could already be in play, which would completely change how the situation is interpreted. Instead of appearing reactive under pressure, it could look more like calculated adjustment and control over commitments. However, that interpretation doesn't remove the external reality. Tax authorities, contractual obligations, and business partners are still factors that don't shift easily based on strategy alone. So the real tension comes down to whether the surrounding system can be aligned with the approach being taken, or whether it pushes back.
I just know that that money he received, I'm pretty, man, damn it, I don't know for sure, but damn it, I'm probably about, I know I'm 85, 90%. I'm telling you, because I don't think he'll be doing this. You know, this is business. So he's just saying, I understand it was a real fight, but now I want to change it. I want to change it now. I got my advancement. Now I want to change it.
Then the conversation shifts again when Shane Mosley enters the discussion, and his tone is completely different from the breakdowns and contract talk. There's no focus on paperwork or financial structure. He's looking at it purely from what happens inside the ring. What makes his comments stand out is that he actually shared the ring with both Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao, so his perspective carries a different kind of weight. Instead of making bold predictions, he speaks carefully, almost like he's aware of how fine the margins are at this level. He suggests that Mayweather may not have the same sharpness or physical speed he once did, hinting that he could be slightly slower and more hittable than in his prime. That immediately opens the door for the idea that Pacquiao might have opportunities in a matchup like this, but Mosley doesn't stop there. He also brings attention to the possibility that Pacquiao could be dealing with his own limitations, whether from training demands, timing, or other complications, making it less clear-cut than it first appears. That's where his analysis becomes interesting, because it stops being about who is better overall and shifts into a question of condition, timing, and who is less affected by wear and age. He also revisits their styles, subtly reminding everyone why this pairing has always been so difficult to predict in the first place.
Right now, Floyd's not the same Floyd that he was back in the day. So, you know, maybe he's a little bit older and he's not moving as much. And you know that when you get a little bit older, sometimes you don't have the same foot movement and stuff like that, and you're able to get hit with certain shots. So maybe Manny has a chance to get in there and do some stuff. But Manny also has some complications with I don't know if he had some kind of stroke or something in the sparring and stuff like that. I thought I seen. So, I mean, there's stuff going on with him too as well. So, yeah, you know, we will see.
Manny Pacquiao brings relentless volume, pressure, and unpredictability. He overwhelms opponents by keeping them constantly engaged. On the other side, Floyd Mayweather operates with a completely different rhythm, relying on timing, adjustment, and the ability to read and neutralize problems as they unfold in real time. That contrast is exactly what former opponent Shane Mosley highlights when he describes Mayweather as the more difficult puzzle to solve, while Pacquiao stands out as the heavier, more explosive puncher. In one comparison, he basically captures the entire matchup. One fighter breaks opponents down mentally and technically, while the other tries to overwhelm them through intensity and force. Mosley also reflects on a moment in his own fight with Mayweather where he managed to land cleanly and hurt him, a situation that still stands out in his memory as a missed opportunity. That idea becomes even more significant when applied to fighters at this stage of their careers. Moments don't last long anymore, and if they aren't capitalized on immediately, they disappear. When you bring that forward to the present, everything changes. Slower reflexes, reduced sharpness, and smaller margins for error mean the dynamic isn't about nostalgia or unfinished history anymore. It becomes a completely new contest built around who they are now, not who they once were.
The harder puncher was Manny Pacquiao, but the most difficult was Mayweather.
Okay.
As far as, you know, his IQ. He had a better IQ, but Manny had a harder working, you know, repetition where he'll come at you. He's working hard. He's trying to get you. Whereas Mayweather is more technical and will sit there and pick you apart.
Then, Right as the discussion around the matchup starts, sounding like a full breakdown of strategy and business, Manny Pacquiao shifts the tone completely. His delivery stays calm and measured. No theatrics, no escalation, just a steady emphasis on humility, discipline, and faith, which makes the message feel even more grounded. But underneath that calm tone, he moves straight into the core issue. He points back to the original agreement, stressing that a professional fight was signed and that an advance payment was already received. From his perspective, that alone settles the argument about what the fight is supposed to be. What makes it more striking is the simplicity of it. There's no confrontation or emotional framing, just a direct reminder of the terms. While others are analyzing scenarios and outcomes, he treats the situation as already defined, not open for reinterpretation. In that framing, anything that deviates from the original agreement starts to look less like strategy and more like a downgrade in intent.
If you ask me, as a boxer, I don't need somebody to push me to work hard, work more, but I did. I was put that in my mind when I'm in training. I have to do extra mile to get that condition.
Manny Pacquiao continues in the same composed tone, reinforcing his position without adding emotion or drama. There's no back and forth energy, just a firm, linear message that doesn't leave much room for debate. That kind of approach becomes difficult to counter because it isn't built on argument, but on certainty. He also emphasizes the intensity of his preparation, describing long, grueling training sessions with high round counts, treating camp like a serious battle rather than a promotional appearance. That detail alone changes the tone of the conversation because it signals full commitment to a traditional fight structure. Against that backdrop, the contrast becomes sharper. While discussions elsewhere revolve around adjustments, contractual interpretations, or potential changes in format, Pacquiao's framing stays fixed on one idea: preparation for an actual fight, without deviation. In that sense, the focus shifts away from negotiations and back to intent. And from his perspective, that intent has already been set in place.
Purpose of exhibition that was long time ago, year after our first fight, but I didn't agree. And then I want a real fight. So he signed what I signed. He signed a real fight, and I signed a real fight, and he got his advance. So there's no reason to make excuses of that. So that's true.
When you put everything side by side, it stops feeling like a single narrative and starts looking like overlapping layers building pressure from different angles. On one level, there's the financial and contractual side surrounding Floyd Mayweather, reports of tax issues, agreements, and business complications that raise questions about what's happening behind closed doors. Then Timothy Bradley reframes it, suggesting the situation might not be disorder at all, but instead a calculated approach, almost like strategic positioning where timing, structure, and financial planning are all part of a larger plan rather than separate problems. But that interpretation gets balanced again when Shane Mosley brings it back to fundamentals. From his perspective, no matter how sharp the strategy is, physical reality still matters: age, timing, reflexes, and where can't be negotiated. And they inevitably reshape what any fighter is capable of in the present. Then Manny Pacquiao enters with a completely different tone, calm, direct, and grounded in what he sees as the original agreement. He doesn't argue or speculate. He simply returns to the terms and preparation, treating the situation as already defined. When all of those perspectives collide, the focus shifts away from opinions on narratives and lands on something simpler but more uncomfortable, not who is winning the argument, but who is still fully aligned with what was actually agreed upon.
Well, we all look forward to that fight. I mean, he signed a real fight, and he got his advance. So then now makes excuses, no.
When everything is put together, all the threads start to overlap, and the picture becomes more complicated than any single storyline. On one side, there's the blend of business pressure, obligations, and public scrutiny surrounding Floyd Mayweather. The situation is no longer just about sport. It involves financial expectations, legal considerations, and the weight of multiple stakeholders watching every move. even for someone known for controlling narratives and staying ahead of situations. The number of variables involved makes it harder to manage in isolation. At the same time, interpretations like those from Timothy Bradley frame it as a possible continuation of strategic thinking, where adjustments and restructuring are part of a larger plan rather than signs of instability. But that idea is constantly challenged by the reality of physical limits and timing, something emphasized in the perspective shared by Shane Mosley, who brings it back to how age and wear inevitably change outcomes regardless of strategy. Meanwhile, Manny Pacquiao remains consistent and direct, sticking to the idea that the original agreement and preparation define the situation. That steadiness creates a sharp contrast. While one side appears to be adjusting and adapting to pressure, the other is holding its position without deviation. In the end, the uncertainty isn't just about whether the fight takes place. It's about how all these forces, business, expectation, legacy, and physical reality, interact at the same time, and what that reveals about where each side truly stands.
But I'm doing exhibitions, and I'm making 20, 25 million, 100 million for exhibitions. So why would I come back and fight and get a guaranteed 35 million when I'm doing exhibitions and getting 100 million?
That's the closing beat of a typical boxing breakdown video, pulling the audience in one last time after laying out all the angles. At this point, the discussion has already explored every layer: business pressure, contract disputes, physical realities, and the contrasting mindsets of Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao. The final line is really just an invitation for viewers to weigh in, react, and keep the conversation going. Exactly how these kinds of fight narratives stay alive long after the headlines fade.